After visiting Johnson's Winery last week, we are now on our way to Mazza's 5 and 20 to enjoy some of their spirits and custom craft beer.
This is Joe Nelson, he's our head distiller. He can kind of give you guys a tour around, give you a rundown of what we do and how we do things here. And yeah, I'll let you guys kind of figure out the timing and what you want to do, but Joe will be happy to walk you through things, and then we can get to tasting or however you guys want to proceed.
Fantastic.
A little bit about the process. Whether you're brewing beer or whether you're making whiskey mash, the process pretty much starts the same. And that starts in the kettle in the corner here. What we do is we mix grains and water together, and what we're doing there is we're holding it for a certain amount of time at a certain temperature to get the starches in the grains to break down into fermentable sugars. I always say the yeasts are lazy little buggers. They're like little kids. They like candy bars and soda. They don't like big complex carbohydrates like potatoes. So what we have to do is break down the starches in the grains so that the yeast can actually eat those sugars and turn them into alcohol, which is what we want. So whether we're doing a whiskey mash or whether we're doing a beer, the process kind of differentiates after that conversion step. So once we get the grains or the starches in the grains converted into sugars, if it's a whiskey mash, we go directly from the mash kettle through one of our heat exchangers into fermenter. It ferments for about 5 to 6 days, and then it goes into one of the stills. So if it's a beer, it goes from the mash kettle into the water tun, which is the second vessel, which is just a big fancy German word for strainer. There's a false bottom screen in there, and it holds the grain solids but allows the sweet, sugary liquid to pass through. And then that's what goes back into the kettle in the corner, which is now the boil kettle. We boil that sugary water, we add the hops to it, and that's basically unfermented beer, which is called wort. From the boil process, after we add the hops, that gets passed through another heat exchanger and a clarification step. Then it goes into fermentation tank. About 14 days later, then it's finished beer. We pass it from the fermentation tanks into a bright tank, carbonate, clarify, and it's ready to go into package, whether it's kegs, bottles, or cans. On the whiskey side, the distillation side in general, we'll go that way. We have two different stills, and they kind of do the same job, but they do it a little differently. The big still over here, the big boy, this is our Vendome copper pot still made in Kentucky. This is actually what we use to produce any of our whiskey spirits and any of our more flavorful fruit spirits on, because this will create a lot of spirit very quickly, but it doesn't create a high purity spirit. The problem is if you create a high purity spirit, you're basically separating out all of the flavor compounds, and that's not what we want in anything that's going into any of our fruit brandies or any of our whiskey products that go into barrel or into bottle. We want them to be as flavorful as possible, so we need to leave a bit of the purity on the table so we have a lower alcohol percentage, but it's more flavorful. Anytime that we're producing anything like a vodka or a high fruit brandy spirit, we'll produce that on the little still, which is actually produced in Germany. This was our original still way back when we were a very small operation. We've upgraded now, but the Christian Carl still over here, this will actually produce a very high purity spirit, like a vodka spirit, but it's not going to be very flavorful. So we kind of have two different machines to do two different processes. Well, it's the same process, but two different directions. So this is one of our barrel rooms. Out there, we've got most of our large cooperage lives out there, so 30-gallon and 53-gallon barrels mostly live out there. In here, we have most of our smaller cooperage and any of our experimental stuff pretty much lives in here. So in here, we have wine barrels that have grape brandy spirit in them. We have rum barrels that have different rums in them. We have rum barrels that have beer in them. We have whiskey barrels that have beer in them. We have wine barrels that have whiskey in them. We have wine barrels that have beer in them. So we have a little bit of everything in here. Most of them, yeah, except for that far row, because we do sell off barrels to either other distilleries, people that like make furniture out of them, just people that want an end table. But generally everything in here is good. So I'm waiting on my barrel.